Well, some wordplay in the title of a scathing opinion piece. Minnesota is becoming the land of 10,000 frauds. A play on, the land of lakes. Jason Chaffetz is coming up in focus. First, let's go to Garrett Tenney with more on this developing story. Garrett.
Yeah, Harris, we are already seeing ICE ramping up its efforts in the Twin Cities, with federal agents focusing on Somali individuals who are in the country illegally. But the Trump administration is also looking at ending temporary protected status, TPS, for a long list of countries, including Somalia, that's allowed folks to live and work in the U.S. These moves come after those massive fraud schemes in Minnesota, where dozens of folks, almost exclusively from the Somali community, stole more than $1 billion taxpayer dollars by fraudulently billing several state social service programs. At yesterday's cabinet meeting, President Trump said he wants Somalis to leave.
I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country.
Minnesota is home to the largest group of Somali refugees in the world, close to 80,000 people. Most of them have become U.S. citizens, according to the Census Bureau. And over the past few decades, they have become a political power block in the state, especially for Democrats. So yesterday, local officials lined up to blast the president over his latest comments.
To, again, villainize an entire group is ridiculous under any circumstances. And the way that Donald Trump is consistently doing it, I think, calls into question major constitutional violations. And it certainly violates the moral fabric of what we stand by in this country as Americans.
So far, more than 50 people have been convicted in that massive fraud scheme. 78 others are charged, and we are told that this investigation very much ongoing, and that what we've seen so far could be just the tip of the iceberg. Harris?
All right, Matt, great reporting. Thank you for getting us started. Fox News contributor Liz Peek has written a new opinion piece. Quote, why didn't the Minnesota authorities crack down sooner on the blatant theft? Reportedly, they were afraid of offending the Somali community, which constitutes a solid voting bloc for Walz and his Democrat colleagues. One local politician put it this way: if you don't win the Somali community, you can't win Minneapolis. And if you don't win Minneapolis, you cannot win the state. End of story. All of that a quote. Minnesota Democrats driving that point home.
Obviously, everyone knows that our president is racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and we are going to fight that. America has a history of fighting and stopping those kind of individuals who continue to divide people and divide communities.
Jason Chaffetz now, a Fox News contributor and former Republican congressman of Utah. First of all, let's talk about the fraud allegations. And having lived in Minnesota, and both in Minneapolis and St. Paul and there, the Twin Cities, let's talk about that community. But first, the fraud, your reaction.
That's a lot of money. You can't just go hide $1 billion. Like, these people have, they've earned it. And Donald Trump is right. That last person to make the comment about dividing communities and all that, you know what? President Trump is pro-America. It is anti-American to actually rip off the American taxpayers. We're the most generous country on the face of the planet. Minnesotans that I know even have relatives who live there. They're very generous. But there's nothing like coming in, ripping off your community, stealing it from the people who actually do need these goods. And Liz Peek wrote a great column. She talked about they had budgeted like $2 million for certain reimbursements, but now that number's over $120 million. And it ends up that, hey, it happens to be these Somalians that are accused of ripping off the system and then sending it to a terrorist organization to go kill people overseas.
Wow. Just real quickly, because I covered some of these cases when I lived there. Minnesota for years, certainly after 2007, 2010, with a growing population from East Africa, particularly Somalia, Minnesota struggled for years to stem the recruiting of some young Somali men by the Islamic State group and the Somali-based militant group al-Shabaab. Now, we knew that that was happening. We had more than a dozen of those young men indicted and caught up in a trial and all of that. not many years ago. And then just this past September, they had another case, a 23-year-old defendant who pleaded guilty of providing material support and resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Look, Minnesota has a problem. The president is targeting them because they apparently, at least some in their community, uncalled, don't really want to assimilate.
Look, if you're here legally and lawfully and you're not committing crimes, you got nothing to worry about. But if you're here illegally and you are committing crimes and you are supporting a terrorist organization, these terrorists, the al-Shabaab, their ties to al-Qaeda, and what they've been doing to kill people around the world in Kenya and other countries. You look at the pirating that's going off the coast of Africa there. It's unbelievable how bad they've been. And they were designated a foreign terrorist organization back in 2008. And so if you have the funding that's happening by ripping off the people in Minnesota and the American people and their taxpayer dollars, I applaud. I want Secretary Noem. I want the President of the United States to go in there, root it out. ICE is going to do the difficult thing, but you know what? You're here illegally. You got to go home. You've got to be detained. You have to be deported. All of them. You're here illegally. You're all gone.
So why would a Minnesota governor get involved in this? What are the politics? Let's dig into that. A new opinion piece now has this headline: voters were right to reject Tim Walz in 2024. And here's part of it, quote, Walz is wildly incompetent as both a politician, as a governing executive as well. He is a hypocrite who gives lectures on morality one moment and cheers the possible death of his political opponents the next. In all, Walz is one of the worst people in our politics, someone who would run both the government and our political culture further into the ground, end quote. Your reaction?
When I was in Congress, in the House gym, his locker was right next to mine. Nice guy, but he's an idiot. And he's had his chance. And you know what? He's absolutely blown it. He's shown that his political colors are all about protecting his backside rather than doing what's right for America, right for Minnesota, and doing what he's supposed to be doing. He is so wrong. Between him and the Attorney General, who doesn't get enough credit for being an idiot as well, Keith Ellison, who served with us in the United States House of Representatives, they are a 1-2 punch there in Minnesota that is destroying that state. And Donald Trump's going to help save that state. And I think the majority of Minnesotans are going to applaud him for cleaning up this fraudulent mess that they've created.
Yeah, look, if anybody wants to do their homework on what they're dealing with, and I say the word some, not all, within the Somali community that are being looked at now, especially those here illegally, they can go to PBS, because that's the report I was quoting from. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's fact. All right. Let's do this. A survey by the right-leaning Media Research Center shows that over the past week, broadcast network Nightly News almost completely ignored this massive fraud story. ABC and CBS didn't cover it at all, not even a second. NBC spent less than 60 seconds on it. Now, I know you're not shocked by this, but I thought Democrats cared about COVID money and helping people out. Like, you would think that the mass part of this fraud, they would care about.
That's the part of the story that I don't understand from the media and from the Democrats. They believe, you hear Zohran Mamdani and others talk about, hey, we need more government, more resources, because there's no problem in your life, small or big, that government can't solve. But when you steal the money from government, guess what? The recipients of those who actually need it, they're the ones that are harmed the most. And that's part of the story they never, ever tell, because they want to perpetuate this myth that big government, more government, is infallible, and that we need more money, that the cupboards are bare. I would always hear Nancy Pelosi say, the cupboards are bare. We have to spend more. We're spending $4 trillion plus, and they still can't get it done. And then to have it ripped off by $1 billion, that's a massive amount of money, Harris.
Jason Chaffetz, great to start off the show with you in focus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.